Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're going to really dig into something that I think is super relevant to a lot of you out there.
Yeah.
We're talking AI in healthcare, specifically this GPT-01 thing, which I know, everyone's talking about it.
It's pretty huge.
But the cool thing is, this deep dive, this is coming directly from you. Like all the articles and research you guys sent in, that's what we're going off of today. So thanks for that. You guys clearly know some interesting stuff.
Absolutely.
And of course, we've got an absolute pro with us to help connect all the dots.
They're amazing at making this stuff actually make sense. You know what I mean?
I'll do my best.
I have to tell you, even prepping for this, I was blown away. We're not talking about AI as just like a fancy WebMD here, like something that just spits out facts.
This GPT-01, it seems to actually be thinking, reasoning almost, like you'd see from like a doctor in training.
It really is a completely different approach to medical AI than what we've seen before. It's less about how much information it has access to, which is still a lot.
Oh, yeah.
But it's more about how it actually uses that information. That's the real game changer.
Okay, yeah, let's dig into that.
Yeah.
One of the articles you sent, actually, it compared this whole thing to how, like, med students go from just memorizing textbooks to actually, like, using that knowledge to diagnose real patients.
Totally.
And it seems like GPT-01 is making that same kind of leap, right?
That's a great analogy. It's moving beyond just memorization to true critical thinking.
Okay, interesting.
It's about connecting the dots. Like Max Su from KeyReply, he said it's about how GPT-01 is figuring out how to make inductions using its existing set of knowledge.
Okay, hold on. So it's not just spitting out a pre-programmed answer. It's like it's actually thinking things through. Is that too much? Am I giving it too much credit?
Not at all. Think about it like this. When you have a complex medical issue, a good doctor, they don't just jump to conclusions, right?
No.
They look at your history, they consider all your symptoms, they might order tests, consult with other doctors. There's this whole process of weighing evidence, exploring different possibilities, and that's what GPT-01 is starting to do. It's mimicking that process in a way that AI really hasn't before.
Wow. This whole system two thinking thing, that came up a lot in the stuff you sent over. I got to be honest, I'm not totally clear on what that actually means in this context.
Sure. So system one thinking, that's our fast automatic thinking, like recognizing a simple pattern. That's system one.
Okay.
System two, that's when we slow down, we analyze things, we really get into that critical thinking mode. And what's interesting is that Max Yu, he actually talked about how GPT-01 has this kind of extended thinking process where it's internally trying to figure out things and then give a final answer.
Yeah.
That's not something we've seen in AI before, at least not in this way.
So it's not just giving you a diagnosis, it's like showing its work, like on a math test, which I always appreciated, even if I got the answer wrong, by the way. But seriously, in medicine, that kind of transparency, that seems super important, right?
It's absolutely crucial, and this is where that whole test time compute concept comes in. Basically, it means that GPT-01 can actually double-check itself.
What?
Yeah, so in real time, it can go back, look for potential errors, and even correct them before it presents you with, like, a diagnosis or a treatment plan.
Wait, hold on. So it's not just that it has more information than any doctor could ever keep up with. It can also catch its own mistakes.
Exactly. And that's huge for building trust, right? Because ultimately, patients need to know that the information they're getting, the decisions being made, they're based on the most accurate and well-considered analysis possible.
I mean, that kind of built-in double-checking, it's amazing, especially with something as important as healthcare. Like, the stakes are so high.
And it really underscores a crucial point. Even the best doctors, they're still human. They get tired, they have limits on how much information they can keep in their heads, and everybody has those areas where they're just more specialized than others.
Yeah, no one's perfect, and honestly, even just like feeling a little under the weather myself, I know it can cloud my judgment sometimes. And that's nothing compared to the kind of fatigue a lot of doctors are dealing with.
Exactly. And that's actually something Max Yu talked about specifically. Human judgment, even in medicine, it's affected by all sorts of things. Fatigue, stress, even just like the doctor's mood that day, it can have an impact.
Wow.
And then when you factor in how incredibly specialized medicine is these days, I mean, realistically, no one doctor can be an expert in everything.
That's true. So it's not that AI is like smarter than human doctors. It's more about addressing those limitations, those human limitations that every doctor is going to have.
It's about consistency more than anything else. GPT-01 doesn't get tired. It doesn't have blind spots based on one doctor's experience. It can level the playing field, make sure every case is getting the same level of objective analysis.
That makes a lot of sense. Another thing that really jumped out at me from the stuff you sent, it's how this GPT-01 thing, how it could actually change the whole culture of medical decision-making.
Oh, absolutely.
Like moving away from just taking the doctor's word for it because the doctor said so.
Yeah.
It seems like this could give patients a lot more power, a lot more say in what happens to them.
It's a huge shift in the doctor-patient relationship, potentially. With GPT-01, you can actually see the why behind a diagnosis. Why this treatment? What evidence is it based on? You could even look at other options and understand the reasoning behind those. It's not just about trusting authority blindly anymore. You have access to the evidence, to the logic.
Okay, so how would this actually work in real life? Give me an example.
Sure. So let's say you're facing a difficult diagnosis.
Okay.
With GPT-01, you could see why your doctor is recommending a certain treatment. Like, what specific evidence are they basing that on? You could look into alternative options.
And you would understand all of that. Wow.
And this ties into the whole movement toward evidence-based medicine, which is really important. We're moving away from just gut feelings and anecdotes toward decisions that are rooted in data.
This is all super fascinating, but I have to admit, there's a part of me that's like, okay, what happens if something goes wrong? If AI is more involved in these decisions, these life or death decisions, who's responsible when things don't go to plan?
That is the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
We're talking about really cutting-edge stuff here. The tech is moving way faster than the ethical and legal frameworks. It's a lot to consider.
It's like we're building the plane while we're flying it.
Kind of, yeah. And it's not even just about individual diagnoses. The implications of this could be much bigger. Like, think about medical training, how doctors are trained.
Okay, now you got me curious. What do you mean?
Well, if using AI like GPT-01 becomes like standard practice, the doctors of the future, they're going to need to learn a whole new set of skills. It's not going to be enough to just understand medicine. They'll also need to understand how these AI systems work, how they think, so that they can interpret the recommendations, use them effectively, that kind of thing.
So it's not even just doctors using AI, it's the whole field kind of adapting to this new way of doing things, this collaboration.
Exactly. And think about it from the patient's perspective. What if you had access to some of these insights yourself before you even saw a doctor? Like, you could research your symptoms, maybe look into potential diagnoses, you even evaluate different treatment options, all with a level of depth that used to only be available to, like, specialists.
So we're talking about a future where patients are a lot more informed, way more involved in their own healthcare.
Potentially, yeah. The more patients understand, the better they can advocate for themselves, have more productive conversations with their doctors, all that.
I don't know about you, but this whole conversation, it's really changed how I think about the future of healthcare. It's exciting, but also a little bit, kind of overwhelming.
Definitely a lot to take in. But that's how it goes with these big leaps forward, right? More questions than answers, but those questions, that's where things get interesting. That's where the progress happens.
I love that. Well said. And to everyone listening, we hope this deep dive has given you a lot to think about as you continue